Hi, and welcome back to the Pleasing God Podcast, a weekly show focused on helping Christians to think biblically, engage practically, and live faithfully for the glory of God. I'm your host, Jonathan Soul, and I'm joined with my lovely wife, Caitlin, for another episode of Imperfect Marriage.
Mm-hmm. Hi.
So, we've talked about our origin story. We've talked a bit about dating and some general stuff, but there's one big part of our lives that we haven't really mentioned, and sooner or later we were going to get around to it, is the gaggle that we have. 5 kids,
Yep.
oldest being 9 and the youngest 21 months. And so let's talk a little bit and let's have a conversation about lessons from littles. Well, it was just shortly after we got married, 6 months, and let's try to have a child.
Yeah, I don't think it was as much of trying as it happened. So, ready or not.
Sure. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah. It was 6 months. I remember the exact moment. We were in our apartment just on a random evening, and we kind of knew that there was a possibility, and I went to the bathroom, took a test, and came out and started crying. We'd only been married 6 months. Our whole relationship was a whirlwind at that point anyways. And then 6 months after getting married, here we are embarking on another whirlwind. Yeah, we just called our parents that night. We did it over the phone, and we're like, hey, we're having a baby. It was a shock.
Yeah, and 10 months or so later, here comes Marley Ruth.
Yep, 2014.
Yeah, welcome to the world. And man,
that was quite a labor experience. You had poison ivy.
Oh, man.
Really, really horribly. And so not only were the nurses caring for me, but they were also caring for you. Actually, probably more so you, because you were hurting pretty badly.
Yeah, that was tough. That was quite an experience. Benadryl and prednisone together, and the excitement and the anticipation of a child, and oh man, it was. But the pain of this wasn't poison ivy.
Yeah.
Like, I looked like Job.
Yeah, it was bad. You had huge, I think we say you had silver dollar sized boils all over you. You had to wear full PPE to hold Marley. And so, in the picture I have of you holding her for the first time, you were in full garb PPE.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and then 2 years later, we had Harry, and then a year later, Oliver, a year later, Hazel, and then it was like three and a half, almost 4 years. Then we had Natalie. So it's been really a whirlwind.
Yeah, I was down at Southern during the summer and was talking. We were doing introductions, going around the class, and who I am. I'm Jon, married to my wife Kate. We've been married for 10 years, and we have 5 kids. And I don't know if it was Professor or I think someone looked at me and they're like, "That's pretty efficient." Actually, they're like, that means that she's been pregnant or coming off of pregnancy for like the majority of your marriage.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's actually true. So the crazy thing, in a way to put it, is that we had 4 and under.
Yes.
We had 3 in diapers.
Yeah.
And I look back and it was a whirlwind.
Really?
I see pictures and videos and I'm like, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
It was survival is what it felt like.
Sure. Yeah.
And but which transition do you think was the hardest?
So one for sure was hard because we were learning each other still. And then to add how to learn to be parents, how you were dad and I was mom, that was hard. But I would say by way of like multiples, going from 2 to 3 was for me very, very hard.
Yeah, certainly the first.
Yeah.
Because when you're coming into a marriage, you are learning that you can't live for yourself anymore. There's someone else. But you can still do a lot of the things that you like to do. And as you're learning each other, you both sometimes want to do your own thing as well, which is totally fine. But then when you go from that to your child, there's a whole nother level of what it takes. There is a whole another level of selflessness that you must show because we want to do this well, right? We want to raise our children well. We don't want to raise children. We want to raise adults.
Well,
right?
you have someone who is, as a spouse, is not like fully dependent on you to live and to survive. But then you add a human being who needs you for every single thing. And plus, for me, on my end, I'm going through hormone changes and, all of that. And it can be very difficult, especially the first few months.
It's something brand new, and there's no manual. Go ahead, read some books. That's fine. But even the books, like, you're like, theoretically, I can do this. And then practically it happens. And I think the biggest lesson that I learned was, one, I think getting married showed me how selfish I was. And then having a child revealed another level of like, not in a sinful way, but that I didn't need to, I wasn't forced in a situation where like I had to care that much because of someone being so dependent upon me. And so I had to wrestle with, okay, this little thing has changed my life. Oh, I love her. I've loved her ever since, she came in, but there was adjustment that needed to happen. I remember as we were sitting down, like trying to figure out scheduling and stuff like that, the thought that someone's not going to sleep through the night anymore. Like, how do people survive? When you're being woken up every 2 hours. Before a child, I went to bed and I'd wake up and it was morning. Sometimes it was late morning, and there's no thinking about it. But then baby monitors and crying and night feeds, and
I remember, especially with Marley. I remember being so tired. I felt sick, like physically sick to my stomach because I was so exhausted. So, there's so much going on with sleep deprivation and trying to figure out another human being, what each cry means and what they need and hormones. And it's all over the place.
You're going insane. And in that moment, all right, sleep deprivation, you're trying to understand what is going on with this little baby. And in all of that, trying to keep the sanity and the health of the marriage together.
Yeah.
Because short fuses and lack of sleep, I mean, that stuff.
And with Marley, we had just moved into our house a month before. So I remember crying over moving boxes because I was like, I have to unpack the house. And, things just seem way more extreme than they actually are in the moment, when you're living in the newborn world. But we had a lot going on when she was born.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I remember it was one of like the first nights that came home from the hospital. And I'm like, all right, you know what, Kate? Why don't you go get some sleep? We've got her in this baby swing, and I'll take care of her. Don't worry. I want you to get some rest. And you're like, all right, yeah, I could use it. And I'd served in the nursery in church before, and like I've held babies. The moment you left the room and went upstairs, I looked at her, and I had this feeling of I've got no safety. Like I am her safety. And she started getting the hiccups. And if you could see the video, if there was a video of me, I was the quintessential dad of the first child all by himself. I am freaking out. I'm like, is she choking? Is she dying? Like, what is going on here? She keeps, will the hiccups cause her to just like stop breathing? And there was a lady from church. I had sent out this huge text to her. And
I didn't know that.
I didn't send it.
Oh.
I got to the point and I was like, wait a minute. I'm going to be that guy. And I'm probably going to get a ha, you'll get this response. I'm like, maybe I should just Google it. So I Google it and it's like, they'll be fine. So I saved myself the embarrassment of being that stereotypical guy. And I was like, all right.
I'm sure they would have been gracious with you.
Of course they would have. But it's just the, hey, I don't have any experience. And sometimes we like to like chuckle at the inexperienced. But for me, that struggle was real. Like that was a real fear that I had, that the hiccups were going to kill her on my watch. You know, it's like,
everything's new. You, like you said, you could read all the books, but when that baby is put in your arms and then you're responsible for that child, all of that could go out the window. And it's scary.
Yeah. And so it was challenging, adjusting, learning what this new normal was with the three of us. And as we start to get a rhythm, boom, Kate's pregnant again.
Yeah. Yep. She was a year old. Found out we were pregnant with Harry.
And here comes Harrison. But it's a boy.
Yeah.
Right? And there's that picture. It's online somewhere. It captured in the moment where we had a gender reveal party.
Yeah, we did.
There were 50 people in the youth center, and we all lined around the youth center. It was back when we were in the height of student ministry. And everybody has a cupcake, and somebody has the whatever filling, and it's either pink or blue. And I think it was your cousin who had, she bit into.
We all bit in at the same time.
Yeah.
So it was like 1, 2, 3, go. Everyone bit into the cupcake, and whoever got the blue or pink frosting in the middle was to call it out.
And so she calls it out. I go running up and
that's
awesome.
a great picture.
Yeah.
We should figure out a way to post that somewhere.
Sure. Yeah, that was awesome. And it was like, all right, got a boy and a girl. I'm good. It's like, we got it all. You know? And 15 months later, here comes mini-me. Oliver.
Yeah.
And he's different. But now we're boy or we're girl, boy. So we've got the boys and we got the girl.
Yeah, I remember having pretty severe gender disappointment on that one. I was certain he was going to be a girl. Certain.
Do you still?
No. Oh, no. He's got a little bit of a special spot in my heart. He's something else. He's awesome. But they all are awesome.
Yes.
He's super sweet. But
he speaks your language.
He does. But yeah, when we found out the gender on that one, we were at Cheesecake Factory and we gave the ultrasound to the waiter and said, if it's a girl, give me strawberry shortcake, and if it's a boy, I want apple crisp. And they come out with apple crisp, and I had to hold back tears. And because people at that point already were around us.
Oh, everybody's watching.
They knew what was going on because we were really close to like our neighboring tables. And I remember like just trying to hold it back and just be happy. And so that was, I know you were happy. But yeah, now I'm thankful Harry has a brother.
Yeah.
So close in age, but
like my brother and I, 18 months apart, my dad and his brother, 15 months apart. And so kind of see it in the soul line of things.
Yeah,
like there's the boys
brothers really close in age.
And man, they're buddies.
Yeah, they are. They're best friends.
I mean, but they're so different.
Yeah. Oliver just came to me the other day. Yeah, I think it was yesterday. And Mom, I think I love Harry more than my sisters. And I was like, well, that, he's your buddy, right? And he's like, yeah, big time.
Yeah. Oh, but I mean, one's got
he felt bad.
One's got dark hair, one's got blonde hair, one's a right-handed guy, one's a lefty.
Yeah, their personalities are so different too.
Yeah.
But they're buddies.
Yeah. One guy is thoughtful, one guy's emotional. They're both kind of emotional.
Yeah.
In their own respective ways.
But Oliver will protect Harry from anything. Like you mess with Harry, you mess with Oliver. He's tough, and so he loves his brother so much.
Yeah, and so at this point we're in this house. They got 2 in one room, the other in this tiny little room, and oh man, this is 2017. Harry's born in 16. Oliver
17.
Oliver came in 17.
Yep.
And I am at that point on the tail end of looking to finish up my undergrad. We've been serving in the ministry for vocationally around 3 or 4 years. And that was kind of a tough season on a few fronts, church-wide and as well as just all these little kids running around and trying to do well, be intentional with my ministry, my studies, my marriage, you as well, just like, doing all that you can to sometimes survive.
Yeah, I remember when we had the 3 and Oliver was just a newborn. and one of the children knocked over a vase that was on the table. Yeah. And it was a vase we had gotten for a wedding present. And it was just one of those things that, like, it really was no big deal at all. But it was just one of those days where it was hard. And I just remember I was, like, laying on the dining room floor just sobbing. Yep. I was like, I can't do this. This is so hard. So hard. And water and flowers spilt and the vase broke, but it just felt so big because I was so overwhelmed.
Do you remember the day that Oliver was born? He was born in the evening.
No,
Harry was born in the evening because you were like, I don't want him coming out on St. Patrick's Day.
Yes. He was born at 11:30 at night, I remember that. On the 16th
March
of March.
Madness, I know. And the Mountaineers were a 3 seed, and they got upset in the first round.
I was filling out my bracket in labor with him.
I'll always remember.
Yeah.
Stephen F. Austin beat them.
Yeah.
They had a shot that year.
Yeah.
They had a good team.
You blame Harry for that.
I just remember Harry and that loss coinciding together. But wherever there's a great loss, there's a great game.
Yeah.
And no, but Oliver was born on, it was maybe an afternoon or something like that.
He was born early afternoon.
That's right. I spent the day with you at the hospital, and you were like, go home. And I was like, hey, I think I could play golf.
Yeah.
And you were like, go play golf tomorrow morning. There's nothing for you to do here. And then just come after golf.
Yeah, we learned pretty quick, especially on number 3, that because I have to stay at the hospital for 48 hours or more.
You wanted your space.
I was like, there's no sense in both of us losing sleep. Both of us, I had all the nurses to help if I needed help with anything. I did fall. That was pretty
you're
bad.
A fall risk.
I was a fall risk, but yeah.
I remember.
Because
he was born on a Friday, because it was a Saturday, and I was with the guys. We went out early that morning. Mm-hmm. We had finished our round. It was like 10:30 in the morning. We go into the clubhouse. We all sit down, and they knew what happened, know. And so everyone's talking, oh, congratulations. And one of the guys that was working there says, what? He's like, what? He's like, I was like, yeah, I had a kid. And he's like, when? And I was like, yesterday. I was like, my third. And everybody was like, I want to marry your wife. That was their attitude. And you're here.
Meanwhile, all the nurses are like, oh, where's your husband? I'm like, oh, he's playing golf.
You're great. So we've got the 3, and it's a tough stretch. We, going into 2018, it was a tough time.
Yeah. We had some
year.
Personal family things going on too, so there was just a lot.
18 was a tough year.
Yeah.
But
we had all that going on, and I remember going to Walmart buying the cheapo pregnancy test. Like, no, I didn't think it was going to be positive, and then I took it and it was positive. And I remember going down to you you were in the dining room, and I was so nervous to hand it to you because I knew we had, there was so much going on in our life with school and everything, and I just remember giggling. Like, I was so nervous that I just was giggling, and I handed you the test, and you were pretty shocked.
We planned for 3, but God planned for 4, so I guess we're having one more.
Something like that. Yeah,
that was the picture you took.
We planned 3, but couldn't see that God planned 4, so we're having one more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're quite the poet. And so I was like, okay, 2 was good. 3, we got the boys. All right, number 4. Mm-hmm. I feel complete. Mm-hmm. And I had girls on the bookend, boys in the middle. It's like, man, this is great. Mm-hmm. But here comes this little furball. And I mean, I'm not kidding. Here comes Hair. That's what we should have named her. Because even though we named the first boy Harrison, she's Hair.
Yeah.
And if you see any of these baby pictures or these pictures, this kid had a mop. I'm telling you. And she still does. I mean,
her hair is got a life of its own.
It is. She's Hair. Someone,
you see Hazel running by, you just see hair flowing.
Like the 80s called, and they transported you here.
Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting about her is when I had her and Marley, their labors were really, and deliveries were pretty hard. And I just remember the doctor being shocked when Hazel came because she was sunny side up. So she was facing the ceiling and her eyes were wide open. And the doctor was like, I have never experienced that before. And it just so encapsulates Hazel because if you know Hazel, she just is energetic.
Lightning in a bottle.
She's just
with lots of hair.
She's just something else. And so we should have known from day one she was going to be fun.
I would encourage anybody who's listening that doesn't follow Kate on Instagram to send a friend request, follow her on Instagram, and you can see some of the reels.
Yeah.
That one that you made of Hazel, of like what's going on in your mind right now.
Yeah.
My goodness.
I've got a few of her. I think I have more of her than
she's
any
real
other kids.
worthy.
She is. She's the one that keeps us busy, keeps us on our toes. She's got a lot of life. So
yes, very, very much so. And the sky is the limit for her. You have the three will do their thing, and she is so content with being on her own. And she marches to the beat of her own drum.
Definitely.
They're all playing a game. She's playing with dirt, making mud cakes, whatever it is. And she's totally content. And fast forward, we had a big gap because there were some struggles. There were losses along the way.
Yeah.
And then
which that we can talk about that another time.
For sure. But then comes Natalie. And like I said, I was good with 4 and very content. I'm not sure I was overly thrilled. Here comes this blonde hair, blue-eyed gem.
She's so cute.
I'm like, where'd this come from?
Yeah, our first blue-eyed baby.
After 5.
After 5.
And she's sweet. We call her Rats.
She's got a lot of names. She's probably got the most nicknames out of them all.
Yeah, for sure.
Everybody in our family calls her something different. So it's funny.
And so that's kind of a timeline of how they came, some of the things that were going on. But when we think about lessons from the littles, we have learned so much. They have taught us so much about ourselves, about the world, here's one really, that if we treat parenting like a one size fits all, we're going to fail them. And it won't be because they're failures. It's because we tried to put them into the mold that we sought. And I think that's something that I've learned is that like I can have the same expectations, the same standards, the same level of discipline for all of them, but they're to be parented differently.
Yeah, that's been so interesting. And it also comes down to personalities. You think after a few kids, eventually you'll get one that's like the other, but they're also different. And so you have to train them differently, discipline them differently, talk to them differently in some cases. So it's sanctifying.
Right. Sure. Relate to them differently.
Right. Where one might want to go to the grocery store with you and just spend that one-on-one time with you. Another might just want to hug you a little bit extra throughout the day. And it depends. And
I believe the burden is upon the parents to know the children, to lean into their strengths, to help them in their weaknesses, to grow them to be those that fear God and love people.
Yeah, it pushes us too out of our own comfort zone as well, because we receive love and give love in certain ways, but then you have a child who receives and gives love different than even us as parents. And so it pushes us to see people, to see their needs, and to serve them in the way that they need to be served. And so pushes us.
For sure. All right. Well, Kate, we're at time right now. And I feel like we're just scratching the surface when it comes to... I guess we could go
on and on with our kids.
Yeah. But one of the things that I really want to make a point about is the lessons that we've learned from them. And we've just kind of talked over broad brushly some of them. But we're gonna do a second episode and kind of dive deeper into specific things and lessons we've learned from each of them as individuals, and how by applying that to our lives, we are first more godly, but we are better equipped to serve them as their parents and hopefully lead them in a right way, and maybe give some practical advice to maybe parents or those that are listening.
Yeah.
So we'll do that on the next episode, and we'll just call that Lessons from Littles
Okay.
Part 2.
Sure.
All right. But as we close off our episodes,
Yes.
Questions.
Yes. My question for you, and I know it'll probably be hard to keep it short, but what is a favorite childhood memory of yours? Or a memory that stands out to you the most?
Camping in West Virginia. We would go down there with my grandparents, and they owned a camp, Brewston Mills. And I learned a lot about living, a little about love. No, sorry, nothing about that. That's just channeling my inner Alan Jackson, way down yonder. And so one of the highlights is camping down at Brewston Mills, growing up, a lot of fishing, being outside, and gave me a love for the outdoors, making fires. 1 year we were down there, and I'm 8 years old, 7 maybe, and a deer comes walking up. And not just any deer, he's a buck. I mean, he's got small antlers. And he starts walking towards me, and all of us at camp. And he walks into our camp, and he walks right up to my pap, and my pap grabs him by the antlers and puts him in a headlock, and they start wrestling. And I'm freaking out. This deer's huge compared to me. I'm a little guy. And come to find out, he was a rather tamed deer. And he used to come around camp and hang out. And he would eat food out of your hands. And he was named Bucky. And so for that summer, I don't know, it was in the 90s. That was the summer of Bucky. And when we were at camp, we'd be there for like 2 weeks. We'd go on walks. There'd walks with my pap, me, my little sister, my brother, my pap, my cousin. And we'd be walking down this path, this dirt road, and there would be Bucky, either in the woods, just kind of walking alongside of us, or walking the path with us. And it was an experience of a lifetime. I tell the story and people don't believe me. So then I go and pull the pictures out, the old Polaroids, and I'm like, look, there's this deer. He would try to get into the camper because he'd smell the Nutter Butters. And if you would feed him, he'd go away, But we saw him for that one summer, and we never saw him again. His rat got big. He was like a 12-point, so he became easy prey. Yeah. So that was one of my great memories growing up, fishing, catching trout, catfish, hanging out in the mountains of West Virginia, Bucky, and swimming. There was a bridge we used to jump off of, and just good, wholesome fun and memories there. Well, maybe what about you then? What would be one of your childhood memories that you could think that was impactful for you?
Yeah, I actually would probably say traveling. My parents, I think, did a really good job at exposing us to a lot of different places. Anytime we went anywhere, it was always a road trip. And so they really made that, a highlight. I remember waking up super early, getting dressed the night before in what I was going to wear for our road trip, and having a bunch of snacks on the road, and sleeping for hours and waking up not knowing where you were. And so a lot of traveling probably would be a highlight. Also, we lived right by Warwick Neck, and so we would walk down to the water all the time and just explore and find sea glass and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, probably traveling and then going down and exploring the water a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah. Great.
Well, it's always good to talk with you and kind of reminisce and think about some of the challenges of having all those kids so quick. Yeah. And yeah, I've got a bunch more I want to talk about too. Like all the looks we get when we're out in public. But until next time, I want to thank you for listening to the Pleasing God podcast. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. You could reach out at questions@pleasinggodpodcast.org. And remember, 1 Thessalonians 4:3, this is the